in my family, we were not the greatest communicators, and it's all about communication. And I tell people, if your lost family member leaves everything to Cookie Monster, 9 times out of 10, they will respect the wishes of the dead. But if you're giving everything to Cookie Monster and you're giving nothing to Ernie's gonna fight. Unless you said, well, Ernie, we don't hear from you, or Ernie is a high earner. So it's also not unusual for the parents to give a large majority of their assets to the child who is still struggling, even if that child is 40 years old. Because, life be lifing. And I know this is a land of opportunity, but people get in their mindset, we won't go there. But the point is, parents have a reason why they give one child more than the other. That child might have a disability. That child might not be in a position to take care of themselves, or that child may already be a millionaire. And so if you're a millionaire and you have a brother and sister who's struggling over here, still borrowing money from mom and dad to pay the rent, well, it's natural that mom and dad are going to give their babies more money, and you have $1 million. So why are you crying?
Welcome to the Throne of Wealth, the podcast that empowers you to reign over your financial future. Each episode brings you tax strategies, wealth building insights, and stories from inspiring entrepreneurs. The Throne of Wealth is brought to you by King of Kings Accounting Firm, where financial challenges become opportunities for growth. Let's get into it.
Hi, I'm Karen Quintanilla from King of Kings Firm, tax strategist. Welcome to another episode of the Turn of Wealth. Today we have a guest speaker, someone that has been in the field for many years with much experience in the estate planning area of law, founder and managing partner of Graham Estate Planning Firm. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you very much, Karen, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you here. And as we were, speaking of camera, of when before we started the recording, learning more about the traffic of Atlanta, the mornings, what we have to go through to get to our, to our destination. So tell me, Stephanie, where is your office located? We're going to start.
So my office is located. Yes, my office is located in the heart of Buckhead. So the view behind me is the Waldorf Astoria, where I have my strategic retreats. And I live in North Fulton. Yes, and I live in Sandy Springs. So we actually just moved our offices to Buckhead in January after planting a seed in Sandy Springs for about 7 years. And I could not find a larger space without some pushback. So I just packed it all up and came on to Buckhead.
Wow. So Will was telling me a little bit about your story of funding your firm, and how this comes deeply to you. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Can you share part of the journey with us?
Absolutely. So I had a list of jobs I wanted to do when I was a kid, since I was 18, 16 years old. And I went through all of those jobs. The last one was in banking, where I thought I was going to be the end all be all and VP. But back then, you could not be a 25-year-old vice president of the bank in a baby doll dress and kids like you can today. And so there was no place else for them to put me. I was number 3. And they said, we don't have any more promotions. And I said, well, what am I supposed to do? And they said, well, something will come along soon. I said, oh, no, I'm going to go to law school. So I went to law school. And the day I resigned, they said, we have a promotion for you. And I said, too late. I'm going to law school. And I went to law school. And but during banking, we had some customers who were elderly who came into the bank to learn that their accounts had been wiped out by their powers of attorney. So I used to run to my manager, my 22-year-old self, and say, hey, Tom, we need to help her. And he said, we can't, because she chose those powers of attorneys. Then fast forward about 4 to 5 years later, when I became an attorney, a very dear friend of mine went to visit her family from New York to North Carolina, had a sickle cell episode, and she died. And the hospital said she was going to die young anyway. It's kind of like they shrugged their shoulders. So my first experience in establishing a probate estate was with her death, because we sued the hospital. And in order to sue the hospital on behalf of someone who died by negligence or wrongful death, you have to establish a probate estate. And even though she had sickle cell for years, she didn't have any planning in place for her potential demise. She had a 7-year-old child and she had a husband. So I had to set all of that up in place for her in order to, or at least the probate, in order to sue the hospital. But since then, we are still talking to the husband, by the way, who I'm still close friends with, about getting his planning in place. And then about 10 years after that, my own grandmother passed away without any planning in place. And even though my family will say that it didn't affect them, it did affect us because we had Thanksgiving every year together. My aunts and uncles, my grandmother, all of my cousins, and then my grandmother passed away, and we no longer have Thanksgiving because you had 5 different surviving adult daughters who had 5 different opinions about her care, 5 different opinions about her finances, and they didn't get along. So there was some resentment about the ones who could help take care of her, the ones who had financial access. And so the family just hasn't been the same since. So after some unpleasant job experiences in Georgia, when I was on my way to apply for a job with Target, because Target pays you $20 an hour, and you only have to work 20 hours to get benefits at least 10 years ago. And somebody said, but Stephanie, well, why did you go to law school? Why are you giving up practice of law? What did you go to law school for? Because, I prosecuted. I had gone from prosecutor's office to prosecutor's office, and I kept running into the same challenges. And I said that you people make it too hard to practice law in Georgia. I just raised my kid and have a career. And so when they said, why did you attend law school? I said, oh my God, I went to law school for estate planning and completely forgot. I'm a first generation lawyer. And so you probably can imagine you can't get a job when you get out of law school. Nobody will hire you because you don't have experience. Even though I interned with the FDIC, I interned with the city council, I interned with 2 judges, but I couldn't get a job except as a prosecutor. So I pretty much became a career prosecutor as well as a business litigation attorney. But practicing law in Georgia, for me, speaking only from my experience, was different than what I was used to in New York. It's like I was punished for knowing too much. I was punished for having an opinion. I was actually told that I was too aggressive in court, and I was like, huh?
Is there such thing?
So I said, I'm just trying to live my life. So finally, my last 2 jobs, I pretty much left without a job. And I said, I'm tired of whatever these games are in Georgia. And when somebody asked me, why did I attend law school? I started my practice 4 months later. And here I am.
Wow, that's amazing. What a story. What a story. That's why they say there is always a story behind it of why we do what we do, right? Leading with a purpose.
Absolutely.
I'm a big believer of, living a life by design and not by default. And I think estate planning is one of those where you have to design what you want. I was having a conversation yesterday with my dad, and I said, Dad, how do you want us to remember you, in the event that you were to pass before me, or in the event that if I were to pass before you?
I love that.
And we were having the conversation at lunch. He invited me to lunch yesterday. And, one of the things that he said, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I just want to make sure that, the principles, the standards. And I said, what about your bank account? I'm not after your money, but I don't want to be fighting for every penny with the bank. Do you have those things in order? And he just laughed. And I said, Dad, this is not a joke. I'm serious. And I said, in the event your house, I don't want to have to go to court and fight for that. And then can't pay your bills on your behalf if, something happens to you. What do we have? And one of the things that he answered, and it's one of the questions that many of us, think at times, that estate planning is only for wealthy.
I tell them, first of all, wealthy people can afford to go to court and fight, okay?
Yeah.
Because when you go to court and fight, it's costing you anywhere from $20,000 and up. It is absolutely not just for the wealthy. It's for all of us who owns anything. Your 14-year-old can have a will in place for their PS2 because people don't understand when you pass away, everybody will fight for something. The
That's
general
right.
public has the I don't know, they have the thought that they don't own anything, but they don't think about their pension. They don't think about the 401k they've been depositing to. They don't think
Mm-hmm.
about the home they live in and their insurance policy. So if they put all of that together, they own at least 500 to $750,000. And I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't put something in place, they will fight over the cookie that you left behind because you didn't tell them what to do. I like to compare it to, like, the person standing up in the refrigerator looking for the ketchup that's right there in front of their face, but they can't see it, but you can. Right? So imagine you
Oh,
pass away and you're no longer there to tell
mm,
them where the ketchup is. And it takes about 6 months really for it to kick in. With they're expecting you to walk in the door at 6 p.m. like you normally do and make your coffee or whatever your habits are. It takes about 6 months for them to realize that that's not happening. They're still living their life as though you're still in it. And then when they figure out all the things they have to do on top of cleaning out your 100 ties and your 200 pairs of Jordan and your costume jewelry, now they have to, somebody physically has to do that. So after they figure all that out, now they realize they don't know anything about the mortgage, and they can't pay the mortgage, and they don't have any access to the bank account. And then it gets to the point where I've had some clients say, well, Attorney Graham, why would they do that? Didn't they love me? Didn't
mm.
they love me? And they don't know. They just don't know. The general consensus is that, oh, you're my wife, you'll get everything when I die. Oh, you're my child, you'll get everything when I die. No, they won't. No, they won't.
It is not an automatic process. It is a very lengthy and expensive process. You know, one of the things that I often see, because we're called for clients, is we had to go through this a lot throughout pandemic. Some of the clients obviously didn't had a plan in place, or some sort of a structure, not to say a trust or a will, anything like that, right? And they were hospitalized with no contact to their spouse, because COVID,
Mm,
and how tragic that was.
yes.
Payments you still had to pay, especially if you had employees. If you have business to run, responsibilities didn't wait. But yeah, you as the family member are not listed on any of these assets or bank accounts or operating agreements or trust documents. All of the legal documents that you need in order to run your business and your financials with that, authority, I would say, which we call it, Attorney Stephanie, obviously a power of attorney, right?
Yes.
Many of our clients, don't have that in place. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the biggest reasons that I see that, it's people sometimes don't take the time, or they don't feel like they have that necessity to do it. But what they don't take in consideration is the emotional and financial consequences that they're causing by not doing it.
Exactly, exactly. What I try to explain to the public and all of my social media, estate planning is not about you. It's about the
Mhm.
people you are leaving behind. It's about the assets you acquired. And then you have that small percentage that says, well, why should I care? I'll be dead. Well, then why are you getting up and going to work every day? It's the same concept. It's the same
Yeah.
concept. You don't even bother getting up to go to work. But what do you think happens to all of those assets and belongings that you acquired over your lifetime when you're gone?
Mm.
And your family relies on you. And then there might be somebody who you don't want to inherit it, who would naturally inherit it through Georgia law or New York law, whatever state you're in. You can fix that planning in advance. Be proactive.
Mm. That's
Mhm.
huge, because sometimes, yeah, yeah. Wow, that's huge. You now reminded me of one of the clients that, so he got separated from the actual spouse about 20 years ago, and he was living with someone else. So
Mhm.
a new partner, they had a family, but they never legalized the marriage, and he never got legally divorced.
Mhm.
So yeah, I remember that. That's one of the scenarios that we saw here in the office. That obviously that the partner, that the common partner, was trying to fight for rights, and so many other things, but the process, and then the legal spouse was like, okay, I get everything.
Yes, it's awful. Barry White, the exact same thing happened to Barry White. And let's not even talk about, Karen. Why are they still legally married to someone they haven't seen in 20 years? Why? What is that about? And somebody said, well, it's money. I said, no, when you've been separated that long, you can literally pay $500 for a divorce as long as you both sign off on paper. I'm really confused as to, because you still have that emotional tie and the property tie. And then as your client who was living with someone, the wife probably came in and evicted her within 30 days. Said, get out. She has all the authority. Doesn't matter that she never spoke to her husband for 20 years. And we don't want to laugh, but it's horrible because, I'd like to talk about when people get arrested, they hire a lawyer. When they're in trouble with their taxes, they hire a lawyer. When they're being sued or they have a problem with their business, they hire a lawyer. But when they're dealing with their assets and they end up in probate court, they do not hire lawyers until they've already been charged with something. It boggles the mind.
Everything you work so hard for every day, and yet you don't protect and you don't actually take the time to assign. How do you want things to be managed in the event that if you were to pass or you're not here?
Exactly. And I try to explain to men in particular who don't want to hear it. When a woman passes away, her children fight each other and they eventually work it out within 6 to 12 months. When a man passes away and if he's single, all HE double hockey sticks breaks out. Like they don't understand. First, your mother comes along. Because mom always believes she is above and beyond. She's priority, regardless of the fact that you may have children. Mom always comes forward first and claims that she's the primary heir. And if mom predeceased, then his sister comes along, and they don't want to hear this and believe it. But I can give them so many examples, including celebrity examples. John Singleton's mother went after her grandchildren, and they put her in charge of the estate, but she wasn't entitled to inherit from the estate because he had 5 children.
Wow.
The children always come first. And so I just beg the men, please put planning in place, please.
Yes. Wow. That's huge. I wasn't aware. So this is good. We're learning. How do you guys family through difficult conversations about, wills, trust, and end of life decisions?
Well, those who are being proactive or they want to talk to their parents, it depends on your relationship. Like you were able to have that funny conversation with your dad, but for the most part, our parents become very offended when you try to have a conversation. So what I tell my clients or those who ask me is basically say, hey, mom, hey, dad, I'm thinking about speaking to a trust attorney and putting a trust in place or will in place for my kids or the house. What do you think? And that allows them to open up the door completely, and your parents won't be on the defense at all. And then without you even mentioning, you'll all of a sudden you'll see their eyes. You'll see it in their eyes. Oh, I didn't think about it. I should probably do the same thing. Yeah.
Wow. Yes. And it is a family decision, right? This is not just you and your spouse and your kids, but going back to it is your siblings, your uncles, your grandparents. Yeah, because I have an employee that an unfortunate situation happened in 2023. Her father passed away in Puerto Rico, and unfortunately there was no plan in place, and he had savings and retirement plans, but all of that they didn't get to keep it because he didn't have added them in the bank as authorized, so they could have authorization to release or request or transfer, do anything with the funds. There was no document in place. So when they try, parents were separated, and the 2 daughters try, they weren't able to. You have to go through the lengthy process, and they were like, by the time we go to the end, is it worth it or not? So they just let it lost. And another client in my office, inherit from grandparents a land in Alabama, in the state of Alabama. And, came to our office to consult about the tax responsibility and said, you know what, it's too much in taxes. I am not going to get this. I'm just going to let the state take it.
Oh no, that's horrible. And they have options. I mean, you can sell it, you can go to court, and as long as everyone agrees with you, you can receive the power to sell the property in court. So as long as it's not contested, it will take an average about 2 to 4 months. The problem is you have family members that are contesting without understanding why they're contesting. You know, they start talking to people in the street and they start talking to their neighbors. And I refer to those people as jailhouse lawyers because they start giving you legal advice and they don't know anything about the law. But they start listening, heirs start listening to these jailhouse lawyers. And instead of just picking up the phone and calling their cousin or the aunt or whomever they feel like they have a objection to, they go file an objection. And the only thing an objection does is take more money out of the state. It reduces the value of the estate, and it will take twice as long for you now to receive your share. So even though I'm an attorney and I love going to court, I always advocate that the families work together, because at the end of the day, the only person who wins in these cases are the lawyers, because we have to get paid and you're going to get less money and you're going to be angry like for no reason. I don't believe people intentionally steal, even though I'm a former prosecutor, at least not on the probate side. I think they do make substantial uneducated mistakes because again, they refuse to hire lawyers. So it just boggles the mind. The things that people do when they are the fiduciary for the estate, and they just, you know, they go out and buy things and they transfer monies back and forth. And I'm like, what are you doing? These records are going to end up in court, and you're not going to look good when it shows up in court that you are transferring money between the estate account and your account. That's not how you run a business, and people don't understand. An estate is a business. It is the business of the dead person, not you. You do not have the power to just take all the money, even if you are the sole heir. You need to have proper records in place and do everything correctly so that the title going forward on the assets, the money, the real estate lines up properly. You just want to make sure you have proper title. What you don't want is for a creditor to come forward or the IRS to come forward after you spent the money, because guess what? You still have to pay the IRS, and now it's going to come out of your pocket because you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Wow.
Yes.
This is fascinating. This is just tell us that, you know, we have to sometimes slow down to go faster. That's
absolutely
what I mean. Yes, slow down to go faster. We're gonna save a lot more money now, and what we have worked so hard all of the years that, you know, we have put into business, into our practices. It's now the time for us to take a look and say, how do we want to be remembered? That we were organized, that we were proactive, that we took action, and then we left in a legal document our desires. You know, one of the things that I was telling someone, it's like in my trust, I even name it how I want my daughters to invest. Because if they provide for themselves, you know, and they just come and take, let's say, you know, there's $1 million accessible to them and they just take it all of it at once, but they go in and expand it out. But if they get it by portions and they can show that they're gonna duplicate it, they're gonna triple that money, they can get a lot more. So, you know, you can put any language you want in your documents, you know, stating and protecting your legacy, right?
Absolutely.
What would be simple steps that people can take today to start preparing for their legacy, Stephanie?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, Karen, they can start with talking to their family members, because even Warren Buffett, who's so rich, he doesn't have to talk to anyone. He talked to his kids and said, hey, I'm giving 95% of my wealth to charity, and I don't want you children to have any issues. His kids are, you know, well in their 50s and 60s. They are financially established on their own, but he had that conversation with them. And to my knowledge, he didn't make any changes afterwards. I think he had his documents created, but he didn't sign off until he had a conversation. Recently, I had a family come to me, and you know, and they had a joint consultation for the three of them. I thought that was amazing, because on the one hand, you don't have to tell everybody what you want to do, but on the other hand, if you're not having that communication, again, that's the opportunity for them to object, because despite the estrangement, right, they will not believe that you disinherited them because you haven't heard from them in 20 years. My mother would never do that, even though I didn't hear from them in 20 years. But hey, pick up the phone and say, hey, daughter, by the way, I'm taking you out of the will. Click. And then they can't be surprised when you actually do. On the other, and then to turn that around, what happens is when they hear that, you start hearing from them all of a sudden. They're no longer estranged. So it's all about communication. In my family, we were not the greatest communicators, and it's all about communication. And I tell people, if your lost family member leaves everything to Cookie Monster, 9 times out of 10, they will respect the wishes of the dead. But if you're giving everything to Cookie Monster and you're giving nothing to Ernie, Ernie's gonna fight. Unless you said, well, Ernie, we don't hear from you, or Ernie is a high earner, or Ernie does very well. So it's also not unusual for the parents to give a large majority of their assets to the child who is still struggling, even if that child is 40 years old. Because life be lifing, and I know this is a land of opportunity, but people get in their mindset, we won't go there. But the point is, parents have a reason why they give one child more than the other. That child might have a disability, that child might not be in a position to take care of themselves, or that child may already be a millionaire. And so if you're a millionaire and you have a brother and sister who's struggling over here, still borrowing money from mom and dad to pay the rent, well, it's natural that mom and dad are going to give their babies more money, and you have $1 million. So why are you crying?
Yeah.
They have reasons. They don't do it randomly. They think it through. But yes, I love the idea of mom and dad and the kids having the consultation. And more than 50% of the time, the adult children contact me on behalf of their parents. The parents might be on the consult, they might not be. But once the actual potential client makes the decision to work with us, everybody has to leave the room. The attorney-client privilege kicks in once you sign that paperwork, and your adult kids have to get out. And they're always shocked by that. But yeah, get out, just get out. And just get out. There are some lawyers who allow it, but I believe they do it because they haven't been to court. I go to court a lot and I see what happens. And so even if it looks fishy, it is. You don't want to give them a reason. It's very simple for the other child number 3 to say, well, child number 1 took mom to her estate planning meeting, and child number 1 stayed in the waiting room the entire time. We don't let them in ever. We have the same process and procedure on every case for 8 years, so that we never have any of these accusations regarding duress, or that's not what really mom really wanted. And I had one situation where I won't go into the details, but basically mom made representations to two of the 4 kids that they were going to be the executor. Well, she didn't stick to her guns. And I made her sign an affidavit so that when they come for me, mom said that she was naming me executive. No, mom said she was naming here. I have the affidavit. I told her that this was going to happen.
Wow. Wow. For listeners who want to leave more than money behind, how can they ensure their values and family traditions are part of the legacy?
They can write all of that in not only, well, I don't want to say so much in the will and trust, but what's trending these days are companies are popping up where they will create these living videos for you. So instead of you writing a letter, you can add your own personal letter into your estate plan to explain why you gave more to this child or that child, or what you want to happen. And you can also record those wishes. There are companies out there that are allowing you to do that, where you can make a video. I wish I could remember the name of this movie. It's very funny, but it was around death, but there was like a lost daughter, right? She was kind of lost, she was mom's favorite child, but she couldn't figure out what she wanted out of life. So she found out at the reading of the will, which is fake, people. That doesn't happen in real life. But they had the reading of the will, and the mom pretty much disinherited her, took her VP position in the company away, and gave it to her sister-in-law. So everybody's mouth was like, and the lost daughter said, can she do that from the grave? And I said, bingo, that is the whole purpose of planning, because you can control everything from the grave. So mom had a plan. It was basically to force her to live her life and figure out what she wanted to do instead of doing what everybody else wanted her to do, which a lot of us get stuck doing. But I thought it was a great example. And then there's another one with based in England, where the gentleman was inheriting, and everyone did everything they could to knock him off in order to inherit. So there are lots of movies that are coming out with planning, and they're pretty much on point, except for the reading of the will part. And so hopefully people will get their lessons. That happens in real life. People, they're not actually taking you out. but they are sending private separate texts to the lawyer saying, "Oh, cousin Jenny did this, so she shouldn't be able to inherit." And they
Oh
don't
my
understand that's not how estate planning works. Just because you don't agree with what Jenny did doesn't mean we disinherit Jenny. It's just hilarious. But they do fight. They do fight. And I'm, as a prosecutor from New York and Georgia, probate has been the most shocking thing. The way people behave and the things they say in probate court, all because somebody in their family died and now they're fighting over the assets. And it's unfortunate, but it's always shocking how the extent that they go over money. So they're fighting over money at the end of the day. And moms and dad, you don't want to believe that's what they're doing, but yes, they are. And so it's kind of like the parents will say, well, Attorney Graham, which of my kids should I make the executor and the trustee? And I tell them, you know which one of your kids doesn't qualify to be the trustee or executor. You're not putting that on me. You already know. You already know. And it will be that same child that will drag everybody to court because you didn't lay out a plan. And then they start laughing because they know they want to pass the buck to me. I'm like, no.
Let me put it back to you. You're in the hot seat now. You
Yeah.
know this child since they
Yeah.
were little. You already
Exactly. But start with the conversation. That's the best thing you can do, because I think once you start with the conversation, nobody forgets the conversation.
Mhm.
And at some point, somebody will come back and say, let's do it. Now, it is hard for people to get started because, people don't like lawyers in general. I don't know why. I'm a fun lawyer, but
I like
we
that.
do. So we do our best to make you feel comfortable. We make it as easy as possible. We're very laid back and we're very transparent. If I say, if you ask me a question, I say it depends. I do it just because I know civilians hate that. But then I always have an answer. I just like to say it depends because they hate lawyers. Always say it depends. But yes, it's just start the process. You spoke with a financial planner. You spoke with your tax strategist. You spoke with your CPA. And so come and speak to us too, so we can wrap it all up for you in a nice little package. Because otherwise, you should be turning in your grave because your kids are fighting.
Yes.
or that husband that you're still married to, he's getting everything, even though you haven't seen him in 20 years. He's going to get it all. He's going to get it all if you don't get it. Yeah. And change your beneficiaries. Please update your beneficiaries because if you leave your assets, so regardless of what you put in a will and trust, Karen, if you have a life insurance policy, a bank account that names a completely different beneficiary, that controls. And if that beneficiary is deceased, that beneficiary's estate now inherits and all of their heirs will inherit. So please, everyone, update your beneficiaries, check your records every year, and just make sure your beneficiaries are updated on everything, your 401k, your pension, your military benefits. Update.
Wow, this is so important. It has been such a great time. I hope that our audience got a lot from this and that we all start, having the conversation like I unknowingly did yesterday with my father. And this is something that we got to continue to make sure that, take it all the way through, and we don't just wait for, last minute decisions kind of thing. But how, Attorney Grading, how can people find you?
So they can find me all over social media, or they can call our office to book a consultation at 1-888-41-WILLS. And I am on all the social medias as either Stephanie P. Graham or Trust Attorney Atlanta. So we're on TikTok, where we actually get quite a bit of clients. Instagram, LinkedIn, and what else is there, Karen? I'm old. I forget YouTube, but don't judge me on my YouTube page. We're working on it.
Okay, then we'll find you in Google.
Yes. So Graham
Google
Estate
search.
Planning, and we take cases in New York and Georgia.
Okay, this is beautiful. 2 states. So
Yes.
you're in Georgia, and you're here in Atlanta, in the heart of.
Yes. I'm always physically here. I don't. The great thing about New York is I can handle the cases without ever stepping foot in New York, unlike Georgia.
Oh, that's good. That's good. One last financial advice that you will leave with the audience before we disconnect.
My last advice is to start talking to professionals, because you'd be
Mm.
surprised, Karen, at the number of business owners that don't have a CPA.
Yeah.
Uh, it's shocking. I had one at 18 just because my former mother-in-law scared me because she was a CPA. So I've had one since I was 18 and I had nothing. So I've had clients that have several thousands and millions and they don't have CPAs. So at least have the conversation. It doesn't really cost you any money to have a
Mhm.
conversation with a
Mhm.
financial planner,
Yeah.
a CPA, and it will cost you to talk to an attorney, but the consultation fee is nothing compared to what you will save. Just start having the conversations with your professionals and gather some information.
Yeah, I think it's an investment, right? It goes,
Yes,
you lose a lot more by not having these things in place, by not preparing in advance, and by, inherent to those that probably we didn't want them managing our state. So this is a conversation that, to me, is an investment. We need to have this, and yes, we got to make the time. We have to make the time. 'Cause
absolutely.
we don't want, I always call it, I don't want to expire. My daughter says, Mom, we all have an expiration date. We just don't know when. Uh,
Oh,
that's my youngest. She's like, we got to make every day count. And so
oh, I love her.
yeah, she's like, we just don't know when we're gonna expire, so I gotta make sure that every day we make it count, like if it is the last one. And so, I was thinking the other day, and I'm like, I don't know when my expiration day is going to be, so I gotta make
Mhm.
sure that, I'm making it count, and this time it's well invested. Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of my meetings this morning, they had a life insurance agent who talked about the average lifespan is 75 and he had 40 years. And I was like, I rebuke that. 75 years old, that's so young.
Yes, my father-in-law is 75.
Yeah, so some of my clients call and they're like, oh, my parents are older. I'm like, how old are they? They say 60. I'm like, 64 is not old. Yeah, yeah.
you know,
Let's
and,
get that, let's get that plan in place though.
yes, this is why, and for those that have the planning, one of the things that I do want to say, because I see this a lot when we're doing advisory here in our firm, and we do proactive tax planning.
Mhm.
I ask, do you have a estate plan in place? And most people will tell me, especially business owners that have been in business for over 20 years or plus. Oh yes, Karen, we have a trust, we have a will. When was the last time you updated them? About a decade ago. What would be your advice on that? Because definitely, I strongly believe there has to be a review, every so many years.
I agree, especially 10 years, because your 6-year-old is now 16, but that guardian and conservator that you appointed in your will is still going to be appointed for the 16-year-old, and things may have changed. You may have fallen out with whomever you named. So yes, I say call your attorney, and if you can't find that attorney, call us
Yeah,
and come in, for a review. Again, it's a consultation, and we'll take a look. But at 10 years, they're definitely going to need changes because the kids have grown, and whoever they appointed as the executor and trustee may not be around anymore, or might
yeah,
not even be in the friend circle anymore. So you're right. Those who do have a plan in place, usually it's 10 to 20 years old.
yeah. Let's update
Mhm.
those plans. Thank you so much for joining to the show today. Thank you, Stephanie, for being with us, and I hope we have you in one of the next shows in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was fun, Karen.
Thanks for listening to The Throne of Wealth. Be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review to help others find the show. A special thanks to our sponsor, King of Kings Accounting Firm, dedicated to helping you build and protect wealth for generations. Until next time, take the reins of your financial future and lead with confidence.